Hello. I am the Linux Mench. Today I'm going to talk about volume control in window managers, focusing on the Awesome Window Manager, the Qtile Window Manager, and DWM Window Manager. So let's get to it. Right now I'm in my main production machine. I'm in Arch Linux with the DWM Window Manager, and on workspace 8 called Virt, I have two virtual machines opened up. I have a Debian virtual machine and an Arch Linux virtual machine. So I'm going to click it on, and we're going to take a look at the Debian one first. So this is Debian with the Qtile Window Manager, and you can see I have a volume control here, and you can move the scale up and down. You can move it back up, and it works. And if I get out of here, let's just go out and let's vim into xedit.rc, and let's comment out Qtile, and let's uncomment Awesome. Let's go into the Awesome Window Manager, and let's do Start X. And you see I have the volume control here as well. And you can move the slider up and down. It's really easy to install. You don't have to configure it, and it's really easy to use. And if you've been following my channel, you know that I always install this volume icon in Arch Linux and in Debian in many of my videos, okay? Now, the thing is that this stopped working in Arch Linux. Oh, before I go there, let's do this. Let's just open up a terminal. Let's do fast fetch. So you can see, just in case you didn't believe me, I'm in Debian, Linux 13 Trixie. And right now I'm in the Awesome Window Manager. So now I'm going to go into my Arch Linux one. So now we're in Arch Linux with the Awesome Window Manager, and let's just open up a terminal, and let's do fast fetch. And I spelled it wrong. Okay, so there you are. So you can see now I'm in Arch Linux with the Awesome Window Manager, but there's no volume control, right? And let's open up my terminal again. So we should type in this line right here. Let's hit enter, just to show you that I have volume icon installed, 5.17, okay? And the build date, look at this. The build date, now look at this, the build date was December 2024, and I'm showing you that for a reason. So anyways, before I do that, let's just quit out of there. Let's do vim xedit. Let's go into Qtile, just to show you that it's also not working in Qtile in Arch Linux. So again, there's no volume control. So right now, volume icon is working in Debian, in Qtile, and in the Awesome Window Manager, but it's no longer working in Arch Linux, in Qtile, or the Awesome Window Manager. And today is November 22nd. So I noticed it stopped working in July, and I didn't know why, right? And I've taken it out of my install scripts. And like I said, I don't know why. Well, I didn't know why it stopped working until recently. And I figured out why it's not working in Arch Linux, but why it's still working in Debian. So now I've opened up Firefox, and we're going to go to Arch Linux. And I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And I'm going to type in volume icon, and I'm going to click it on here. And this is the most current one, 0.517, okay? And you can see it's from December 2024. Now, it's not because Arch Linux is behind in updating it. Volume icon hasn't been updated since then. So if we go here and type in volume icon, here it is here. It's this one right here. You can see here it says this repository was archived by the owner on September 2024. So it's not that Arch Linux is behind, it's that volume icon hasn't been updated. Now you might be wondering, well, why is it still working in Debian? I know you're probably going to say, well, because Debian's older, right? But there is a reason why it's still working in Debian and it's not working in Arch Linux, and I'm going to show you. So this app right here, GDK Pix Buff, let's click it on. So this file or app, I don't know what this is, it's this file, GDK Pixbuff, was last updated this past October, but it's been getting updated all year. Well, the first update was in July, and it's in July when my volume icon stopped working in my window managers in Arch Linux. And this volume icon is, to work properly, is dependent on this file. And this file didn't get updated all year until July. So the volume icon that was updated in December was compatible with this file. They worked together and it was functioning. But this file has had several updates starting in July. And that was when the volume icon stopped working. Now what I'm going to do is go back to my Debian system. This is Debian. I'm going to open up a terminal and I'm going to type in this command, app list installed. And then I'm going to go do a search for volume icon. And you can see at the top here, volume icon is 0.5.1, the most current one, which is from the end of last year. Now I'm going to do a search for this pix buff. Okay, so I did a search for this pix, and right here you can see it's version 242.12. So this is the version, the reason why it's still working in Debian, the version of pix buff is 242.12, which is the one that was working with and compatible with volume icon, or volume icon was compatible with 242.12. So, like I said, volume icon hasn't been updated since the end of last year, and Debian is still running an older version of pixbuff, which is compatible with volume icon or vice versa. And that's why the volume icon is still working in Debian. But the volume icon is no longer working in Arch Linux because Arch Linux has been updating this pixbuff, and it's right here, okay? It's at the top, it's the first line, and actually there's a few of them, okay? But Arch Linux has been updating this pixbuff, and the newer versions of pixbuff, well, volume icon is no longer compatible with the newer versions of pixbuff. So that's why in Arch Linux, volume icon is no longer working, but it's still working in Debian. Now I'm going to go back to Arch Linux, my Arch Linux 1, and that's this one right here. And what I want to do is I'm going to downgrade to the old version of pixbuff, okay, in my Arch Linux system. So let's close that. Let's open up a terminal and let's cd into downloads. I already have the file in here. It's this file here, so I just have to install it. So I'm going to do sudo pacman like that. And I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to put my password in. I'm going to hit enter. And now we downgraded to the old version of pixbuff, which is compatible with the old version of volume icon or vice versa. So now I'm going to close this and I'm going to log out and I'm going to log back in. Let's do start X. And there we have it. We have the volume icon working in Arch Linux, okay? But there's only one problem. Look at this. We can go up and down. Well, a couple problems, and that's this. Let's open up our file manager. Look at our file manager. Look at the icons. Okay, the icons are not right. Look at this video file I have here. That's not right. And now I'm going to get out of there. And I'm going to cd, I'm going to vim into xinit rc. And I'm going to comment out qtile. And I'm going to activate awesome. Let's go into the awesome window manager. And again, we can see the volume icon is there. It's working. Okay. But again, let's open up Nemo, look at my files, and look at this. And there's another problem too. Let's open up GIMP. So you see in GIMP here, all these files here, I don't know if you ever use GIMP, but if you use GIMP, you'll know that all these icons here in the top left are not right. And even down here, it's not right, okay? So I don't know what other, by downgrading, I don't know what other things it affects, but it's not good, right? So now I'm gonna open up my terminal and I'm gonna update the system. Put my password in. Oh, there's some other updates to do as well. Arch Linux, it updates every hour, right? Okay, that's done. And let's log out. And let's go back in to awesome. So now we're going to see the volume icon is no longer there. But if we click on GIMP, there we go. So now we see, look at these icons are fixed in the top left corner. This looks the same down here. But up here, the icons are all fixed. And let's close GIMP. And let's open up Nemo. And now my icons are fixed in Nemo, right? And even look at the file, my video file, okay? And I'm not going to go back into qtile to show you that. So the most recent update of volume icon is from the end of last year, and it's not compatible. It needs an older version of this pixbuff, and it doesn't work with the newer updated versions of pixbuff. But the reason why it's working in Debian is because Debian is still using this old version of pixbuff. Debian has not updated pixbuff. Even on Debian 13, they have not updated pixbuff. They're still using this old version of pixbuff, and that's why the volume icon is working in Debian, but it's not working in Arch Linux. I think I repeated myself too much, but I hope that's clear. So, what is my workaround? My workaround is this. I programmed the awesome window manager in Arch Linux. Now it did different workarounds in Arch Linux than I did in Debian. So I'm going to talk about Arch Linux first and what I did with my install scripts. And then I'm going to talk about what I did in Debian. So in Arch Linux, in the awesome window manager, I changed the configuration file and I'm going to open it up. I'm going to vim into RC Lua and I put line 127 in to mute the volume, line 128 to increase the volume, and line 129 to lower the volume, okay? So these lines here, 127, 128, 29, they affect the menu. So if we go to another workspace and you click on the menu, you have volume mute, volume up, and volume down, okay? Now the volume up and down, it's going to change the volume by 25% right here, okay? Now if you don't like the 25%, you can change that to 5%, 10%, whatever, okay? And the same thing with the minus 25%. If you don't like the minus 25%, you can change it to whatever you want, 5%, 10%, whatever. So when you're playing a video or listening to music, or you're watching YouTube, you can just right click and you can do volume mute, volume up, volume down. And like I said, the volume up and down are by 25%, but it's easy for you to change it to 5%, 10%, or whatever. Now, if you want to use the key bindings, let's go back here and let's go further on down. Now, I made key bindings for the awesome window manager. And again, F3, okay, is going to mute it. F1 is going to be volume down by 25%. F2 is going to be volume up by 25%. And if you don't like the 25%, you could change this minus 25% to minus 5, 10, 15, whatever percentage you want to make it. And the same with the volume up. You can change this to 5%, 10%, 15%, whatever. Okay, so F3 is going to mute. F1 is going to be volume down by 25%. F2 is going to be volume up by 25%. Or if you just want to use the menu, like I said, you can just do this. Volume mute, up and down. And it works. Let's close that. Let's get out of there. Let's cd into, let's clear the screen. Let's vim xinit rc, and let's go into Qtile. And let's start X. So Qtile also used to have the volume icon, and it no longer works in Arch Linux. Now Qtile, there's no menu, okay? I'm going to open up a terminal. And I'm going to cd into config Qtile, ls it, and I'm going to vim into config.py. I'm just going to do a search for volume. So these are the lines in Qtile, 140, 142, and 144. Now these commands might look the same, but they're not the same as the commands that are in the awesome window manager. They're different. But I put the same key binding in. So F3 is going to mute the volume. F2 is going to move the volume up by 25%. F1 is going to move the volume down by 25%. And if the 25%, if you don't like that, you can change it to right here, okay? Right here and right here, you can change it to plus 10% or plus 5%, whatever you want. And the same thing with the volume down. You can change it to minus 5%, minus 10%, whatever you want. Now, like I said, Qtile has no menu, right? Like the awesome window manager does. There's no menu. So it's all, Qtile is all keyboard driven, right? Now, these commands in Qtile are different than the ones in awesome. You can't just copy the ones over from awesome to Qtile. You have to do it this way. Anyways, it works. I know it works because I tested it. So now I'm going to get out of there. Now I'm going to close this and I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to vim into xinit rc. And I'm going to go into, I'm going to comment out Qtile, and we're going to go into DWM. I noticed that the volume icon stopped working for me in Arch Linux in July. And July was the first time this year that that pix buff file was updated since last year, okay? So like I said, the volume icon stopped working in July, but the volume icon for me never worked in DWM anyways. Why? Because I couldn't figure out how to get it installed in DWM. Now, there might have been a way to have the volume icon work in DWM when it was still working in Arch, but I could never figure out how to do it. So in DWM, what I did was this. Again, F3 is going to mute the volume. F2 is going to make the volume louder by 25%. And F1 is going to lower your volume by 25%. And I'm just going to show you the key bindings. Let's cd into builds. Let's cd into DWM. Let's vim into config. Let's vim into config.h. Let's just go here. Line 117, 118, 119 are the commands. And again, these commands are not exactly the same as the commands in my Qtile configuration file, and they're not exactly the same as the commands in my awesome configuration file. So you can't just copy them over or transpose them between window managers. The commands are different, but the key bindings are the same. Okay, so on line 117, F1 is going to lower the volume by 25%. F2 is going to make the volume louder by 25%. And F3 is going to toggle the volume off. And like I said, right here, if you see right here, see this minus 25 right here? You can change it to be minus 5% or minus 10% or whatever you want. And the volume up, increasing the volume, you can also change it to be plus 5% or 10% or whatever. So like I said, I never had the volume icon working in DWM, but I did this. So line 113 to 116, only in DWM, I was using that to change the volume, and I did a reinstall of my computer and that stopped working for some reason. So now I'm using line 1, in DWM, I'm using line 117, 118, and 119. So I left lines 113 to 116 in there, but they're commented out. Okay, they're deactivated. I left them in anyways. Now I'm going to quit out of there. Now I'm back in my Debian virtual machine. Let's just close that. And so like I said, in Debian, did an update that picks buff file. So the volume icon is still working in Debian, in the Awesome Window Manager, and in Qtile. So I didn't change anything in the Awesome Window Manager or Qtile in my Debian folder. Now, like I said, the volume icon never worked for me in DWM, and probably because I didn't know how to get it into the status bar and to make it work. But because the volume icon is still working in Debian, in Qtile, and the Awesome Window Manager, I didn't change anything in the Awesome Window Manager or Qtile as far as volume key bindings for Awesome or Qtile. I only put key bindings in for DWM. So I'm going to cd into builds. I'm going to cd into DWM. I'm going to ls it. I'm going to vim into config.h, and I'm going to type in volume. And right here. So there is another thing too. Not only are the volume commands different between Awesome, Qtile, and DWM, they're also different. Well, I made different commands between DWM Arch and DWM Debian. So the commands I have for the volume control for DWM and Debian are different than the commands I have for volume control for DWM and archlinux. But the key bindings are the same. So in Debian, if you're using my DWM configuration file, in Debian, F3 is going to mute the volume. F2 is going to up the volume by 25%. F1 is going to lower the volume by 25%. And you can see here in my Debian DWM, it's on line 112, 113, and 114. So like I said, if you don't like the 25%, you can change these two 25s, 5, 10, 15, or whatever. Now, so like I said, the key bindings are the same. F3 is going to mute it. F2 is going to increase the volume by 25%. F1 is going to lower the volume by 25%. But the command is different in here. So if you compare this command to my command in my DWM configuration file in my Arch Linux folder, the command is totally different. Sure, it's 25% still, and it's F1, F2, and F3, but the command is different. So don't swap the commands or copy the commands between Debian and Arch Linux because they're different, or mine are anyways. Okay, so that's how it works. And what I'm going to do is cd out of here. Let's clear the screen. Let's cd into Mench. Let's ls it. So you see in my Git Lab repository, I have all these folders. So I have an Arch folder, Debian folder, and many other folders. So I made a lot of changes today in my Arch folder and my Debian folder. And if you want those changes that I just showed you, you are going to cd into Mench and do a git pull. Okay, and now you're up to date. So if you don't have my Git Lab repository, you're going to put this command in, and this command is in the show notes of all my videos. And that's it. In this video, I explained why the volume icon stopped working in the window managers in Arch Linux back in July. And I explained why it's still working in Debian. And I showed you my workaround, how when I'm in Arch Linux and I'm in the awesome window manager, how I can mute the volume, increase the volume, or lower the volume with the menu, and also how I can mute, lower, or increase the volume with key bindings in the awesome window manager, how I can mute, increase the volume, or lower the volume in the Qtile window manager, and how I can also do it in Dwm. And I showed you how in my Debian system, I left the awesome window manager alone. I didn't change it. And I left Qtile alone. I didn't change it because the volume icon is still working. And how I also added commands for volume control in Dwm in the Debian. And I also explained that the commands in the configuration files are different between awesome, Qtile, and Dwm, and they're also different between Debian and Arch Linux. But the key bindings are the same, right? F3 will mute, F2 will increase the volume by 25%, and F1 will lower the volume by 25%. And in the Arch Awesome window manager, I also have the ability to mute, lower, or increase the volume with the menu. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I am the Linux Mench.